This is Thersa Matsura, and you're listening to Uncanny Japan. It's been almost a year since I've done a show about one of the 7 mysteries of Shizuoka, Enshu no nanafushigi. A recap: there was The Rock That Cries at Night, episode 36, Rocks That Give Birth to Other Rocks, Koumare Ishi, episode 59, The Tortured Snake Dragon at Sakuragaike, episodes 88 and 89, The Cat Grave and the Rat Grave, episode 99, and The Legend of Shippei Taro, episode 119. If you counted, that makes 5, and today's will be 6. And you would be right to think, well, that means there's only one more left, since nanafushigi means 7 mysteries. But you'd be wrong. Sorry, that wasn't very nice, but you would be wrong. And that's because it's one of those things where there's supposed to be 7, but it turns out there's a whole lot more. So that means much more nanafushigi goodness still coming your way in the future. For today, though, I'll be talking about the Nami Kozō, or Wave Boy. Would you like to explore the stranger, more obscure corners of Japanese culture? Dig a little deeper into superstitions, curious customs, and all those mysterious creatures that inhabit the land? If so, then this is the podcast for you. Uncanny Japan is where I, author Thersa Matsura, share all the fascinating tidbits I unearth while doing research for my writing. From the bizarre to the ghastly, and everything in between. I hope you enjoy the show. Hey, how are you? Awesome, I hope. I'm fine. I'm busy recording the audio version of the Book of Japanese Folklore, which is coming out most likely in late April. And the reason for the most likely is that the art department decided they wanted to add stained edges to the pages of the hardcover to make it even prettier. So far, it's still on track, though, for the April 30th release. And hey, if you haven't or are thinking about it, you can still pre-order and then email me at, this is all spelled out, thebookofjapanesefolklore@gmail.com with a screenshot, and I'll send you an hour-long folktale that I translated, reimagined a little, and read. It's called The Wife Who Didn't Eat. If you're a patron or thinking about becoming one, I'm working on making a book plate and a bookmark that I will send to you on top of the story, which you already have, actually. I need to go to an art store and check out some washi paper. I have a bunch of ideas about how they're going to look. So I'll let you know when that's all ready. Thank you for everyone who has already pre-ordered and those who have already reached out. I really love hearing from you, where you're at, where you're from, and how you found the show. It's like I wake up and I'm excited to check my mail. And that's huge, so thank you. Okay, on to today's show. Listen to those waves. This area where we're recording right now was, in 1996, selected as one of the 100 soundscapes of Japan by the Environment Agency. Perhaps for a reason that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But for today, let's listen to these chill ocean waves while I talk about the Nami Kozō, or Wave Boy. The Nami Kozō is a yokai, or sometimes even thought of as a low-level kami, or god, from Shizuoka, my prefecture. I didn't even know about him until very recently. One thing I discovered was that there are quite a few different stories about him. First, he not only goes by Nami Kozō, he is also sometimes called uminari, the sound, ringing, or crying of the sea. Now, let me tell you what uminari means when it's not another name for Nami Kozō. It's a sound reportedly heard by residents living near the shore of Hamamatsu. Usually, when you think of the sound of the ocean, it's the waves lapping up against the shore. But this is different. It comes from far out at sea, and it has a low frequency, like a rumbling or drumming even. In English, it's translated as skyquake, something else I had no idea existed until just now. Skyquakes have been reported from all over the world for hundreds and hundreds of years. They're also said to sound like cannons, or the reverberating of artillery fire, or like distant but loud thunder. The catch is, there are no clouds in the sky. These skyquakes go by a bunch of different names too, like guns of Seneca, water guns, fog guns, or mist pulvers. Apologies about that pronunciation, but I love the name mist pulver. Basically, no one really knows what exactly causes these deep-throated grumblings of the sea. Some theories are volcanic eruptions echoing across the ocean, underwater caves collapsing, gas that was trapped under the Earth's crust and is being released and making its flatulent way to the surface, and meteors entering the atmosphere. You might be tempted to just say that they are sonic booms from some far-off jet, but these ocean cries have been talked about for a whole lot longer than our venture into the skies. So that's what Uminari means. It's a mysterious thing in and of itself, and maybe the Nami Kozō came about because it was a way to make sense of this strange phenomenon. When it happens, it's said to be heard as far as 20 to 30 kilometers inland. So loud. It reaches its peak from the rainy season, around June or July, to the Obon season in August, they say. The simplest folktale of Nami Kozō, or Uminari, goes something like this. Mukashi, mukashi, a fisherman caught the wave boy in his net. The little yokai pleaded for his life. Please release me and I will predict the weather for you. If you hear a mysterious rumbling sound coming from the southeast direction of the sea, that means rain is coming. If the sound comes from the southwest, though, the weather will be fine. The end. Nice, but a little lacking on details. Here's another variation of the story. One very hot day, a young boy was out tending his family fields. It was so hot and so dry that all the vegetables had withered and burnt. Still, the boy tried to save as many as he could to take home to his parents. He gathered what he could and was just about to return home when he heard a small, frail voice calling out. He searched around until he found a very tiny little human-like creature. Please help, said the little fellow. My name is Nami Kozō and I live in the sea. I was washed in with that last big storm that blew through here, and now I've been stranded ever since. Every day is hotter and hotter, drier and drier, and I fear I will die here. Could you please carry me back to the ocean? The boy felt sorry for the weird little dude and said of course he'd take him back, which he did, carefully placing him in the water. Thank you, cried the little guy and vanished under the waves. Meanwhile, the days passed with no end in sight to the drought. With no more vegetables left to pick, the boy went to the ocean and sat watching the waves. Suddenly, he saw the shadow of the little wave boy he'd saved several days earlier. Nami Kozō swam over and thanked him again for his kindness. But he noticed the boy didn't look very happy. When he heard about the predicament the whole area was in, he said that now that he was back in his element, he was a master at causing rain. He'd go back into the sea and send rain this way. Then he said, in repayment for saving his life, he drummed to forecast the weather. Drumming that came from the southeast meant rain, and drumming that came from the southwest meant calm weather. There is an even more interesting version about the Nami Kozō, but I need to mention wara ningyo, or straw dolls. You'll probably remember the morbid voodoo dollish variety from the Ushi no Kokumairi episode. There they were used to curse a person. Well, actually they were also used for good luck too. For example, during the Heian era, straw dolls of various sizes were used to ward off evil, like putting them outside your village to lure any disease like the measles or smallpox sweeping through the area into the human-shaped effigy, sparing the villagers. After the danger had passed, these wara ningyo, straw dolls, were cast into the river along with some prayers, taking all the bad energy and disease with them. Actually, lots of impure things were floated down the rivers back in the day. But for now, just keep in mind this custom of tossing these bundles of straw into currents and them being carried away. It's going to come back in a minute. So the next, little more interesting and detailed version of the Wave Boy goes something like this. There once was a Buddhist monk named Yokai. He was a real person, and he did a lot of neat stuff, not the least of which was mapping out Japan, where all the temples and shrines were, and helping to build the Daibutsu, Big Buddha in Nara at Todaiji. Well, one day, Yokai made 2 straw dolls praying for the swift recovery of his ailing mother, and he sent them to work out in the fields to plant rice. I'm assuming here because that's what his mother was supposed to be doing and couldn't because she was sick. After the 2 wara ningyo finished their work, Yokai had them sit down and recited a bunch of sutra, Buddhist prayers, over them. He then took them to the Kurumegi River and instructed them to warn people if any bad weather was approaching. Then he sent them off down the river. One of the straw dolls made it all the way to the sea, but soon got caught up in some fisherman's net. The fishermen were frightened, not knowing what this affront to nature was. I can just imagine the straw figure, big enough to farm, squirming around among a bunch of fish in the net. Anyway, the fishermen decided they had to kill it, but then it began talking. It told them that it lived on the bottom of the ocean, which was a lie if you think about it, a good one though. If they released it back into the sea, it promised to forever foretell the weather by drumming loudly enough they could hear it from the surface. The fishermen believed this bizarre straw beast and let it go, where it disappeared forever under the waves. But it kept its promise. Ever since that day, it has done just that, evidently. The fisher folk figured out that if they heard percussive thumping from the southeast direction, there would be smooth sailing. If, however, it came from the southwest, a storm's approaching. And a couple more similar tales also involving wara ningyo, the good variety. One came from the time of Kukai. Remember we talked about him in the episode about the 5 elements. He brought esoteric Buddhism, Shingon, to Japan. Well, that's not all Kukai did, or could do. While he was practicing on a mountain once, he, and presumably those who were with him, were bothered by a bunch of wild boars wreaking havoc and destroying everything. To defeat these animals, he created some straw dolls. After the dolls had finished the task of getting rid of the obnoxious wild boar, Kukai instructed they further help humans by letting them know ahead of time if the wind or rain were going to kick up. These dolls were taken to Enshu, now Hamamatsu, where the folk tales started. And the next tale involves the construction of the Akihas Shrine, way up in the mountains, again in Hamamatsu. It was hard work, so once again straw dolls were employed to help out. The little guys worked hard and once finished were rewarded by being set free, down to the river. Only, the people were a little reluctant to let him go. Maybe they could help out some more in some other way. So they asked the wara ningyo to please notify them of any inclement weather which would help them with the timing of planting and harvesting crops. And I'm assuming that they agreed to this. Now, here comes a twist that kind of blew my mind. You remember kappa, right? Those slimy aquatic river beasties with a shell on their back, beak on their nose, and a little indentation on their heads that holds strength-giving water? Well, if you read really far back about them and where they came from, there's a line of thought that says that they were actually believed to have transformed from these types of straw dolls, the ones used for labor. So literally, the wara ningyo metamorphosed into a very early and crude kappa. But this makes sense to me, because the very first book in Japanese I got about yokai had a section on kappa that I painstakingly translated. But I was confused at one part that said kappa were a kind of doll, and then if you pulled one arm, the other would get shorter, like they were connected. And this made no sense to me, and I thought I was reading it wrong. Here, 30 years later, maybe I wasn't, because if you look at a wara ningyo, the two arms are just one bundle of tied straw stuck through the body. If you were to pull the arm, the other would shorten. Mystery solved. Further proof of this theory comes from Mizuki Shigeru of Gegege no Kitaro fame. He has his own Nami Kozō and describes him as a kappa and is quite nearly a god. There's also a river in Shizuoka called Tenmyu River, and it's really twisty and turny and it snakes through the mountains. I fell in love with this river when I stayed at the Mountain Inn last year and watched the early morning mist rise off it and change by the second. It was mesmerizing and magical, and I just sat there with my coffee thinking, of course people believed in dragons. This is unreal. The river's name, by the way, means heavenly dragon. There are a lot of folk tales and legends all up and down the Tenmyu River, and a folklorist named Tokuro Chiba wrote about how a good many of those tales are about kappa that helped out doing agricultural work. The idea of kappa helping out, but also straw dolls helping out, certainly overlaps here. So there you go, the Nami Kozō, or Wave Boy, and his mini legends. Before I go, I'd like to thank Richard for all your hard work on the audio for this show and the upcoming book, and also for your work on the Uncanny Japan and Teresa Matsura websites. Thank you. Thank you to all my patrons and supporters of the show for your friendship, awesomeness, and because of you, there is a show. Stay well, and I'll talk to you all again in 2 weeks. You've reached the end of the show, and I just want you to know how much we appreciate you listening and supporting us. Any subscribing, reviewing, and gushing to your friends, family, even random strangers really does help keep us going. If you have the means and you want to help a little more and get a little more, we are making extra content over on Patreon, all for only $5 a month. Or, if you like to read horror, you might be interested in my Bram Stoker-nominated short story collection, The Carp-Faced Boy and Other Tales. Hontoni arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you again, and I'll talk to you real soon.